I would request you guys, we can keep the coffee waiting later. Could we just sit down and listen perhaps? My young friends in the back, we've come a long way to talk to you. Do you want to just sit down perhaps? Okay, I'll wait till you sit down. I'm used to being heckled in Parliament, but I'll wait till you guys settle down. And can I request you all to settle down? Please, guys, settle down and sit down, and then. Thank you. Thank you very much. I would really request if we could please have some silence in the hall. It's really impossible to speak.
தயவுசெய்து கொஞ்சம் அமைதி காக்கும்படி கேட்டுக்கொள்கிறோம். அனைவரும் உட்காரும்படி கேட்கிறோம். இருக்கையில் அமருமாறு கேட்டுக்கொள்கிறோம்.
மாணவர் அணி தோழர்கள் யாரும் அந்த டிஸ்ட்ரிபியூஷன் ஆஃப் எதுவும் இருக்கக்கூடாது. ஒரு முக்கியமான உரையை ஆற்றிக் கொண்டிருக்கிறார்கள். நாடாளுமன்றமே உற்று நோக்கக்கூடிய ஒரு சிறந்த சொற்பொழிவாளராக இருக்கக்கூடிய பார்லிமெண்ட்ரியன் இங்கே உங்களுக்காக ஒரு சிறந்த கருத்துக்களை பதிவு செய்து கொண்டிருக்கிற நேரத்தில் நீங்கள் அமைதி காத்து இந்த கருத்துக்களை உள்வாங்குவதற்காகத்தான் இந்த மாநாடு என்பதனை கருத்தில் கொள்ள வேண்டும். அந்த கதவுலாம் கொஞ்சம் க்ளோஸ் பண்ணுங்க உடனே.
Thank you. I think they've already been introduced as a tigress, so I have a reputation to protect and roar fairly early on, so I hope I haven't offended anyone. All right, now I can go back to roaring in peace. This is India, that we're all sitting here. There's somebody from Karnataka, there's somebody from Kerala, there's somebody from Bengal, there's somebody from Bihar, there's somebody from Delhi, and this is India. There is no Hindu India. There is no Hindi India. If you think about Thiruvalluvar, the RSS is even trying to saffronize Thiruvalluvar. They have depicted him as a saffron monk with Rudraksh and with sandalwood and ash on his forehead. Have you seen this? The UGC draft history syllabus is clearly indicative of saffronization. Few things, and it's spine-chilling to realize where the saffronization of education is telling us. What was the contribution of Vinay Damodar Savarkar in this freedom struggle? As far as I knew, his contribution was sitting in a jail cell in Andaman and writing letters of forgiveness to the British. That's the last I knew of it. They've added on demonetization. They've added on Make in India. They've said non-vegetarian food is terrible for you. Non-vegetarian food harms the body. Meat products have been eliminated from a long list of fat, protein, mineral salts, and it tells you what to eat, when to eat. Patanjali, as you know, is Baba Ramdev. Anyone remember Baba Ramdev? I think Patanjali products encourages nationalism. It's part of a Swadeshi movement which increases love for nation and nationalism. Ever heard of that? Godse killed Gandhi is nowhere in the textbooks. Gujarat riots 2002, not mentioned anywhere. Cow vigilantes, beef ban, Dadri lynching, nothing. You don't need anyone to take on Modi. Ultimately, 56 inches will get larger and larger and larger when he will self-implode. And that is what will happen. They will self-implode because this kind of regime cannot go on forever and ever and ever. Why are we here today? It's great. I was listening to the Honorable Law Minister of Kerala, Mr. Rajiv, who spoke very well, and I hope all of you, especially the law students, listen to what he said. And, he said, this is India, that we're all sitting here. There's somebody from Karnataka, there's somebody from Kerala, there's somebody from Bengal, there's somebody from Bihar, there's somebody from Delhi, and this is India. So there's no one version of India. There is no Hindu India. There is no Hindi India. And more important, there's no Hindutva India. Is that correct or is that not correct? The reason we are standing here today on a platform provided by the Dravidian movement, we must understand that today where we are standing is I would say the birth spring, the wellspring of the social justice movement in India, of equality. And this party was set up in 1949, am I correct? 17 September 1949. The year 1949 is coincidentally a year in which George Orwell wrote his book 1984. 1984 was perhaps one of the first books of the dystopian genre when Mr. Orwell, where George Orwell envisioned a future in which there was this super state. The name of the super state was Oceania. And Oceania was controlled by a few leaders called the Ingsoc. And they wanted a new language called Newspeak. And what was Newspeak? Newspeak was a new language in which 2 + 2 would be equal to 5. And they had 4 ministries. They had a ministry of peace that dealt with war. They had a ministry of love, which dealt with, I would request you guys, we can keep the coffee waiting later. Could we just sit down and listen perhaps? My young friends in the back, we've come a long way to talk to you. Do you want to just sit down perhaps? Okay, I'll wait till you sit down. I'm used to being heckled in Parliament, but I'll wait till you guys settle down. And can I request you all to settle down? Please, guys, settle down and sit down, and then... Thank you. Thank you very much. So like I was saying, there were 4 ministries. There was the Ministry of Peace that dealt with war, the Ministry of Love, which dealt with torture. You had the Ministry of Plenty, which dealt with starvation. But most important, you had the Ministry of Truth, which dealt with only lies. The Ministry of Propaganda was inside the Ministry of Truth. Now, think of where we are today. Orwell said this was a world where everybody would be watching. There would be TV screens where every single citizen, resident of Oceania would be watched all the time. Is this not where we are living today? Does this not remind you of the dystopian reality that we are facing in India today? And this Ministry of Truth and the Ministry of Propaganda had this language called Newspeak, like I said, where 2 + 2 would also be equal to 5. That is the India where we are facing today. Everyone had a different topic to speak about. The topic, I would really request if we could please have some silence in the hall. It's really impossible to speak.
தயவுசெய்து கொஞ்சம் அமைதி காக்கும்படி கேட்டுக்கொள்கிறோம். அனைவரும் உட்காரும்படி கேட்கிறோம். இருக்கையில் அமருமாறு கேட்டுக்கொள்கிறோம்.
மாணவர் அணி தோழர்கள் யாரும் அந்த டிஸ்ட்ரிபியூஷன் ஆஃப் எதுவும் இருக்கக்கூடாது. ஒரு முக்கியமான உரையை ஆற்றிக் கொண்டிருக்கிறார்கள். நாடாளுமன்றமே உற்று நோக்கக்கூடிய ஒரு சிறந்த சொற்பொழிவாளராக இருக்கக்கூடிய பார்லிமெண்ட்ரியன் இங்கே உங்களுக்காக ஒரு சிறந்த கருத்துக்களை பதிவு செய்து கொண்டிருக்கிற நேரத்தில் நீங்கள் அமைதி காத்து இந்த கருத்துக்களை உள்வாங்குவதற்காகத்தான் இந்த மாநாடு என்பதனை கருத்தில் கொள்ள வேண்டும். அந்த கதவுலாம் கொஞ்சம் க்ளோஸ் பண்ணுங்க உடனே.
Thank you. I think they've already been introduced as a tigress, so I have a reputation to protect and roar fairly early on, so I hope I haven't offended anyone. All right, now I can go back to roaring in peace. What's important is, we were all given different topics to speak about, and we had federalism, and we had the saffronization of education. And I picked education because, again, when you go back to Orwell, what he talks about is the Ministry of Propaganda and Ministry of Truth dealt with 4 topics. One was history, one was art, one was news, and the 4th was education. Why is education such a tool in the hands of fascists? Because fascists all over the world, when you read about the history of fascism, when you read about fascist rulers the world over, you will see that the first thing fascists want to do is to control and suffocate academic curiosity, scientific temper, and what they want to do is to kill historical narratives. So the way they figure is, he who controls the past controls the future. So the first thing to do is to make sure that textbooks actually reflect a history that is not really true. So what are you trying to do? The propaganda machinery of the saffronization of education in India today is busy spewing false narratives of this mythical India, which is this glorified India. Then what do? You say that India was amazing, was glorified, a mythical India, and then it was looted. It was looted by this evil minority, which is now being demonized. So then all the time you are keeping young people and citizens in a constant state of agitation, because you're saying that there was this India which has been lost, And you actually have to go now and pick up arms to go back and fight with this invisible enemy all the time to try and reclaim the narrative. Do you get it? This is what's happening all the time. And this is exactly what the saffronization of education seeks to do today. Salman Rushdie in Midnight's Children had written, he says, children are the vessels into which adults pour their poison. This is something fascists realized very quickly. So all fascism begins in elementary schools, in textbooks, in classrooms, in examination halls, and in universities. I'm going to quote Adolf Hitler here, because Hitler realized very early on that if you can control education and educational institutes, you can rear and you can bring up obedient, non-questioning, non-dissenting, conforming citizens, which is exactly what the BJP and the central government want to do in India today. If you say you're a dissenter, you're a terrorist. If you raise your voice, you put the UAPA or a sedition case under you, lock you up, throw away the key. There is absolutely a complete breakdown of any kind of constitutional machinery. What did Hitler say? He says, the boys and girls that enter our organization, what he meant was the Nazi party, they enter at 10 years of age. And for 4 years, they're part of the young folk. Then they go on to the Hitler Youth, where we have them for another 4 years. And even then, if they're not still complete National Socialists, they go to labor service. And then, of course, then they go into the army. So what do you have as a result? You have a brainwashed individual that completely believes the propaganda that the fascist party is spewing out. And that's what's happening today. Let me compare this with Modi ji's Gujarat in 2004. In class 8, students were being taught about the negative impact of Gandhiji's non-cooperation movement. And then there were chapters like Hitler, the Supremo, the internal achievements of Nazism in class 10 textbooks. This is in 2004 in Modi ji's Gujarat. I'm not making this up. I'm going to quote to you a line from this textbook. It says, Hitler lent dignity and prestige to the German government within a short time. He created the vast state of Greater Germany. He adopted the policy of opposition towards the Jewish people and advocated the supremacy of the German race. I mean, what we're talking about is the Holocaust here, where 6 million Jews were terminated. He constructed public buildings, provided irrigation, built railways. He instilled the spirit of adventure in the common people. Now, since 2014, India has seen a very similar trend in its educational institutions, which are really becoming branch offices of a ministry of propaganda. I've said this in Parliament, and this is no better forum to say this to you, so you can go and then, take it forward. All historical facts are rapidly being distorted and substituted with mythology. What do we mean by this? Plastic surgery was Ganesha's head being put. This was plastic surgery, yeah? You have the Article 51A of the Constitution. It's a fundamental duty of every citizen to instill a scientific temperament, to have the spirit of inquiry. 2019, Indian Science Congress. What do we see there? We have somebody standing up and saying, questioning Einstein's theory of relativity and saying that the actual test tube babies were made in India thousands and thousands of years ago. This is happening in the Indian Science Congress. Can you believe this? In a country whose constitution says that the spirit of scientific temperament is a fundamental duty. So I'm going to actually point out just a few things, and it's spine-chilling to realize where the saffronization of education is telling us. In June 2017, BJP government in Rajasthan questioned who gave the slogan of Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas. During his Nepal visit, how did Modi assure Nepal? What was the contribution of Vinay Damodar Savarkar in this freedom struggle? As far as I knew, his contribution was sitting in a jail cell in Andaman and writing letters of forgiveness to the British. That's the last I knew of it. So now the new social textbooks, they've added on demonetization. They've added on Make in India. They've said non-vegetarian food is terrible for you. Niti Aayog, 16th Lok Sabha, and what have they taken out? Gandhi's assassination. The fact that Godse killed Gandhi is nowhere in the textbooks. Gujarat riots, 2002, not mentioned anywhere. Cow vigilantes, beef ban, Dadri lynching, nothing. What else is being taught? Demonetization is being taught as Kale Dhan ki Safai. In Hindi, this means cleaning up of black money. And this is being shown as some great cleansing movement in India that has brought people to some higher level. This is what is actually being taught in a class 12 textbook. Non-vegetarian food harms the body. Meat products have been eliminated from a long list of fat, protein, mineral salts, and it tells you what to eat, when to eat. Then we look at, I mean, Patanjali. Patanjali, as you know, is Baba Ramdev. Anyone remember Baba Ramdev? My sort of, last memory of him, which I can never erase from my mind, is him in a chunni, hiding himself in a chunni, in a shalwar kameez, and jumping off the stage in Delhi from the dharna and running off into some car to escape arrest. Do you remember that? Now, this man has obviously built some kind of multi-billion-dollar empire, and all the products keep getting thrown off FDA because it's got very high levels of lead and mercury and all of that. And so he says, eating Patanjali products encourages nationalism. It's part of a Swadeshi movement which increases love for nation and nationalism. Ever heard of that? August 2017, BJP ruled Maharashtra board. It removes the Mughals, the existence of the Mughals from the history books. The board revised history textbooks for class 8 and 9, removing all traces of the Mughals, focusing on the Maratha Empire founded by Shivaji. This is great. There's nothing wrong with focusing on Shivaji, but the Mughals are an integral part of our history. You can't change it. Good or bad, history is history. Facts are facts. So no mention of Razia Sultana, Muhammad bin Tughlaq. The Rupaya was the currency which was introduced by the Afghan invaders. No mention of that. What they mention in class 9 textbook is the Bofors scam and Indira Gandhi's emergency of 1975-1977. Okay? July 17, Rajasthan. This is hilarious. I mean, I couldn't believe it when I was reading it. Rajasthan University alters history. It said Maharana Pratap defeated Akbar in the Battle of Haldighati. I mean, when I was reading this, I said, you've got to be joking, but it's true. Maharana Pratap defeated. I don't like the fact that Akbar defeated Maharana Pratap. I don't like 2 + 2 = 4. So I'm just going to say 2 + 2 = 5. And I'm going to repeat it and repeat it and repeat it till at least some people believe it. This is double speak. This is new speak. And this is, again, the Goebbels doctrine. If you repeat a lie often enough, it becomes the truth. March 2021, the UGC draft history syllabus is clearly indicative of saffronization. The UGC has come out with this draft undergraduate history syllabus, and a large body of teachers have said that saffronization and distortion of facts, playing up the Vedic period, playing up Hindu religious texts, and diminishing sort of the existence of Muslim rule. We are not saying Muslim rule is good or bad, but it's an integral part of our history. You can't wipe it away. So the first paper of history honors in DU, Delhi University, now covers prehistoric times and the early historic period, and it has topics like the idea of Bharat, eternity of synonymous Bharat. The 12th paper has cultural heritage of India. The new syllabus uses the word invasion. So the draft syllabus, again, Uprising 1857 says the first war of Indian independence for the Sepoy Mutiny, which is again a term coined by, as you know, Vinay Savarkar. July, Tagore, Radhakrishnan, Sarojini Naidu are removed from literature books from the UP board. Our finance minister, who's of India, and I'm proud of her because she's the first finance minister India's ever had, and first lady finance minister India's ever had, and as a woman parliamentarian, I'm proud of that, and she also hails from your illustrious state. But I'm not happy with her finance or her economics, but she always quotes the poet Thiruvalluvar during her budget speeches, any of that. You must have noticed. Whenever Madam gets up to speak, she quotes poet Thiruvalluvar. And, if you think about Thiruvalluvar, the RSS is even trying to saffronize Thiruvalluvar. They have depicted him as a saffron monk with Rudraksh and with sandalwood and ash on his forehead. Have you seen this? So there is no one that they have left alone, even Thiruvalluvar. Now, what did Thiruvalluvar say? If you read the Thirukural, there is one of them, which is, I think, is Thirukural number 448. And he says, the king who is without the guard of men who can rebuke him will perish, even though there will be no one to destroy him. What does this mean? This means a king, a ruler, a leader who has no one to criticize him, doesn't need opposition, he will self-destruct. And I think that the saffronization of education and this double speak and this Orwellian dystopian India that we're living in now is actually when people says, who is the opposition? Who is the opposition? Who can take on Modi? This is exactly what Thiruvalluvar said. At the end of the day, you don't need anyone to take on Modi. Ultimately, 56 inches will get larger and larger and larger when he will self-implode. And that is what will happen. They will self-implode because this kind of regime cannot go on forever and ever and ever. Anything that aims to, anyone who has tried to limit the idea of India has failed. We have seen it over and over and over in history, and he is no exception. So I think today, this is not a personal attack on the Prime Minister. As a Prime Minister and as for the chair, I have the deepest respect. But for the ideology and for what this regime is doing to India, doing to future generations, and doing to our education system and to the spirit of inquiry, we must all stand up. And all of you are young people here today, so I would ask you, please, this is important, think about it. Think about what the Minister of Law said from Kerala. Think about what I said. Think about what Mr. Stalin said. If you don't stand up for federalism and you don't stand up for everything that this Constitution of India guarantees us, there will be no India left. So with these slightly scary thoughts, I leave you to go out and become messengers and make sure that we don't live in the super state of Oceania, that we live in this wonderful democratic country of India, whose preamble, as you said, is we the people, and we have the power to defeat even God. Thank you so much.